Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. This is my Choose a Main guide for Mortal Kombat 1. Mortal Kombat 1's got a pretty big roster, and every character is about as diverse and varied as they've ever been in Mortal Kombat history. Characters can do so much more in this game than they ever could in, say, Mortal Kombat 11. So in this video, I'm going to be going over every character. Don't worry, timestamps are included, so skip to whoever makes sense for you. Although if you skip, leave a like. That helps the video. Thank you very much. But yeah, we're going to talk about every single character, what they can do, what they're capable of, and just basically all of their primary options in Mortal Kombat 1. Once again here, cast very varied, very fun, got a lot of cool tools to work with, and hopefully this video will help you understand what the characters can do and help you maybe settle on a character that you might like to play. That all said, this is Liu Kang's new era, so we'll start with Liu Kang and we'll work our way through the cast. So Liu Kang, this is Liu Kang's new era, and you can tell everything's kind of different because Mortal Kombat has color again. Mortal Kombat hasn't had color in a very long time, so thank Lord Liu Kang for that one. So what's Liu all about this time around? He's similar-ish, but then again he's sort of God now, and thus some of his moveset has changed to reflect that. So just at a glance here, first thing, Liu Kang sort of always been known for the fireballs, and he's got those in spades. So classic fireball still around. A little bit more of a blue and red rather than just pure fire, because he is the god of fire and lightning technically. We have that. We have a low fireball, and this bad boy is a true low, by the way. So you have to block that crouching. And just so you know, when you're in Fireball Wars, because he does kneel to do the move, you can go underneath opponent fireballs. So that is very handy and lets you win Fireball Wars. And also, his regular fireball, the EX version, just destroys other fireballs. So if you time it correctly, you'll just win every Fireball War. Besides that, he still has air fireballs, and being God now, he's got hell of air fireballs. He ain't just shooting the one, he's shooting a whole bunch. So regular, grounded, and air fireballs, he definitely has the fireball game covered. Don't worry about that. Now, besides that, some of the classic moves have changed up here. So the regular flying kick is preceded by a dragon. So just to showcase how strong he is. You still do the flying kick. The EX version is just the dragon by itself. So you can actually use that as a bit of a launcher. So if you're going for combos, you can launch the enemy up, juggle, and combo out. So that's really cool. Bicycle kick is a little bit different now here. It's also his reversal. It is armored if you enhance it. Still good for combos, not quite the same as although it is actually still here in his fatal blow, so bicycle kick hasn't fully gone away just yet. Don't worry about that. Now, besides all that, Liu Kang, he doesn't have dominant buttons in neutral or anything like that. He's not that kind of character. He never really was, right? But besides his good fireball game, he's always been good at pressure, and he's got that in spades. So say something like forward 4. Forward 4, very fast mid starter. We can hit confirm all sorts of combos off of it. It's not plus on block like say Mortal Kombat 11, but still, it's there. And now say plus on block. We actually got quite a few plus frames here. Like 3-2 is a string which ends in an overhead, and that is advantage on block. Stand 2-2, which is another hit confirm string, is also plus 3 on block. So he can bully you really good. Like if you block this here, it's not your turn necessarily. If you're going to both mash out here at the same time, Liu Kang will win in these scenarios. So you got to watch out. It's always Liu Kang's turn if he's using the right buttons and the right strings. Also back 2 is a 10 frame mid, very handy. That's about as fast as you can get for a mid. So no neutral ducking under that. And its string continuation is just straight up a meterless launcher. So if you're looking for easy setup, some easy combos here, Liu Kang, he's got some stuff, right? He's very easy and straightforward to work with. You can get elaborate with some of the setups and some of the combos, but if you want to just be straightforward, it is very possible here. His tool set is very strong. Not to mention some of his new moves here. He has a bit of a short-range teleport attack. And this move is actually keyed to be somewhat invincible against jump-ins. So if they come in with a jump in, you can either just be not there because he is intangible for part of it, or use some of that invincibility. And the EX version is faster and even more invincible against jumps. And as you can see, it pops him up just a little bit. So comboing it's very easy after the fact. And once again, you can get more elaborate. And it's a lot safer than an uppercut because the uppercut has no invincibility, unlike his teleport. And that's about it. So Liu Kang, I think he's a very solid beginner character. He has great presence from full screen. Everyone loves throwing those fireballs, right? And he's got good fireball game. Up close, he's a very strong blender character. He has lots of plus frames, lots of strings that even if you block, it is still his turn. And if you didn't block, well, then it's combo time, right? So he's just very forgiving, very easy to use. And if you're a beginner, I do recommend this character. Now, let's talk Scorpion. So Scorpion's a little different in the new era, as it were. One, he's actually Sub-Zero. Within the context of the story, the Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat 2 and up is now Scorpion. And the Sub-Zero in this game is the Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat 1. So it's only story bits. Don't worry. Still got the spear. Still got teleports. All that Scorpion stuff still there. Just a different person under the mask this time around. And, well, hey, speaking of exactly that, right? So the spear. So the spear is still the spear. He still says, get over here. That kind of stuff's all that there, right? Some differences this time around is the spear is a bigger part of the move set. It even affects his normals. So stuff like Stand 2 is, in my opinion, one of the best moves in the game. Because the range is absurd for the relative speed of the move. And if it connects, well, whatever combos you can dream up are very easy. Very easy hit confirms, insane range. And hey, speaking of insane range. So yeah, that's back 3. And that's almost a full screen low. Not quite, about 85% of the screen. But yeah, he can trip you up a lot further away than the usual sweep distance, to say the least. That's one of the biggest things about this version of the character, is his effective range is a much higher than it usually is. Some other things to note here. So usually neutral ducking took a lot of the teeth out of Scorpion, because you could go under the spear and you can go under the teleport. This time around, just a note, EX spear is a mid, so there is no ducking that. If you do the regular spear, sure, but if you do the enhanced spear, he will get you. Other things to note here, the Hellfire move returns. So this is a tracking low. Wherever the opponent is, it will hit them. They have to be in the air to escape this move or otherwise block. The enhanced version, though, is unblockable. You simply have to take the damage. That's all there is to it. Now, unlike the regular version, there's no flinch. Like, the enemy doesn't visibly get hit. But you take the initial damage and there's a little bit of DOT after the fact. So if you're looking for a near guaranteed way to close out a round, that's a really good way to do it. And coming back to the spear, because that is such an iconic part of the character's moveset. So you can use the spear in a lot of new fun ways. Like, say, swing it around in a big fiery blaze. Or also, you can use it in the air. So Scorpion, very blessed with a lot of ways to launch. Pretty fast starters too. So 12 frame launching, meterless, mid, that's really good. That's also safe on block, by the way. And you can follow up here and then do basically air spear, and it'll bring the enemy in. And if you choose to enhance it, well, then you can just keep comboing after the fact. It'll pull you to the enemy, and you can keep your air combos going. All sorts of air combos and air juggles are just much more important overall this time around, and Scorpion has a very, very easy way of it. So if you're looking for that classic Scorpion experience, you basically have it here. All the cool tools are here. We got a couple new tricks on the sleeve here because he's a little bit more mobile. His range in general, neutral, general, just hitting buttons is vastly improved, to say the least. He's got some new tricks in that regard. So if you want that classic feel plus a bunch extra, Scorpion absolutely has it here. You can still teleport like a madman. It's a high, so they will neutral duck up. Watch out. If you want teleport fake outs, that's down baked into the moveset. Enhanced teleport is the fake out. So you can just empty do it and then throw the enemy or hit him or whatever you want to do. But yeah, all the classic Scorpion stuff is here, and it feels very strong. Sub-Zero. If you want a Sub-Zero experience in a Mortal Kombat game, you'd be pressed to find a better one than in this one. So he's a bit of a mix mash of just greatest hits. So we have Sub-Zero, the defensive wall, because Ice Clone is absolutely in the game, FYI. And if you want to go a little crazy, we also have triple Ice Clone if you want to spend some bar, right? So the defensive wall aspect of the character is there. It doesn't last too long, which fair enough, because there's very few moves complained about more in fighting games in general than Sub-Zero's Ice Clone. But we have that. That's good. But we also have stuff like overhead launchers. So we have the classic defensive aspect of Sub-Zero in this game, and we have the monstrous 50-50 coin flip guest character that is also there. So either find yourself frozen if you're too aggressive against a clone, or find your head caved in because you were not aggressive enough against Sub-Zero's very powerful overhead offense, right? So we have both aspects of the legacy of Sub-Zero here. Very powerful defense, very powerful offense. So let's talk, Sub-Zero can throw the ice ball and freeze the enemy and get a full combo. That's still there. Enhanced freeze, by the way, destroys all projectiles and is a mid, so you cannot neutral duck it. We still have classic ice slide, and yes, classic ice slide is still a low, so you gotta watch those toes. And once again, the more you're watching those random lows, eventually get cracked by that overhead. So we got some of those classic toys, sure. And just a note, Ice Clone 2, you can do it while jumping. Besides that, we got new toys like dive kicks. So that's very handy. You can jump backwards while doing it as well. And if you enhance it, it becomes a ground pound, which launches the enemy. And hey, naturally, if you're launching the enemy, you can get juggles and all that after the fact, right? So very interesting. Especially if you're just jumping backwards or neutral jumping and you catch them whiffing a big button, it's a good way to punish them. And besides that, he has actual proper projectile, not just the ice ball, which is good, but he has Ice Clone offensively. Now this bad boy is a mid, which means you cannot neutral duck it. And one of the fun things about this is it clashes with projectiles. So if you're looking for the quote-unquote fireball war, you don't got to worry about accidentally just kind of losing out. Now here, the one weakness, as you can see here, it does not quite go full screen. So if you're looking for the full screen fireball war, rely on the EX ice ball, which destroys other projectiles, or just try other ways of working your way in. And while we're here, yeah, Clone does destroy projectiles as well. Another interesting addition to the moveset is Deadly Vapors. So this move tracks, hits the enemy wherever they are, doesn't do a lot of damage, but the idea here is the enhanced version does slow them enough that this is where you're going to get a lot of your combos from. EX Ice Ball normally is too slow, so this is kind of your go-to freeze move. And of course, naturally, you get your freeze, then you get your combos, you go in, easy deasy, there you go, right? Easy combo damage. And if you're looking to be a little sassy, if you want to dump some meter here, you can actually get it multiple times per combo. It's really up to you how much you want to burn, but if you want to burn all that meter, the option is there. So yeah, Sub-Zero, like a lot of characters in this game, is sort of a greatest hits of the character, and it's absolutely to his benefit because he has a lot of fun stuff going on. Now, Nitara has not been in a Mortal Kombat game in a hot minute. And she does have a celebrity guest voice actor in Megan Fox. Although, that's not necessarily the appeal of the character. What the appeal of the character is this. She is the master of the skies, as she has an 8-way air dash. And that's kind of a big deal when it comes to mobility. Now, obviously, there's some other stuff, right? But the hammer at home. Something like that, right? So she has, if you want to call it like a double jump or whatever, like the effective equivalency of it. Because she can jump, stay in the air, and keep following through, right? So her ability to traverse the air is absolutely unmatched in this game. And the thing, too, is you can stay in the air as long as you got meter. The first dash is free, as it were. But if you want to spend more meter, every additional dash costs 1 meter. So she can stay in the air a very, very, very long time if you're willing to spend some cash on it. And all this dash stuff is very applicable to her combo structure, because I can cancel my air attacks into dashes, attack on the way down, land, and do other things, like say this. And there we go, right? So easy peasy combo, all thanks to being able to air dash while I'm in the air and comboing them. And much the same here. We can go completely different air routes. Her ability to combo and her general freedom of combo structure is actually among the best in the game. She can do so much thanks to the air dashes. Many of her moves also leave her airborne for the purposes of air dashes, like stand 3, back 2. So she can do a lot of shenanigans with this. Not to mention she also has an aerial dive kick, because once again, this is an aerial based character, right? Enhanced dive kick also bounces the enemy, which is great for combos. And if you want to be tricky with the dive kick, you can also use it to basically air reset yourself. So you can use it to purposely whiff a combo, land, and then get the combo on the other end, right? So along with the flight, the dive kick gives a lot of freedom to her movement and just general combo structure. Now, besides all the flight stuff, which I know is cool, she's a vampire, right? And that's definitely kicked into the move set. So she can, you know, attack with claws, she can spit blood, all that cool stuff. But the big thing is the sacrifice. So she can self-damage herself to give herself a buff. And while this buff is active, certain things change up. Like that spit becomes a DOT. So you'll do additional damage past the original spit. The bite, if you look at the health here, we just regained some of that health, didn't we? So while you have the buff up, your bite actually restores your health. So she's actually the lowest health character in the game as far as I can tell. And she, on top of being able to self-damage to give herself the buff, can also heal herself thanks to this. And not the least of which, the enhanced version just steals health from the enemy by being near the enemy. You don't got to do anything special. It automatically steals their health. They will take damage, you will gain health, and they can't do anything about it other than hitting you or not being beside you. And naturally, say if you got that up while you're doing your combos. Your combos are going to do more damage here. You're going to regain health while you're biting the enemy. All that kind of stuff. So things really work out in your court. Not the least of which, it unlocks an all-new move, which is this giant blood-based projectile. So it is aimable to a degree. And if you get both hits, it actually does over 10%, which is a lot. But even if you quote-unquote whiff, its coverage of the screen is very, very big. And the enhanced version just does absolutely absurd damage for a projectile, 15%. Now, for all these moves, be it the spit, the big projectile, the health steal, once you use the move, the buff is gone, right? But it still is very strong, and the EX buff, just since it automatically damages the enemy and steals health into you, I think it's one of her best uses of meter, besides just getting extra flights in. So, air mobility through the roof, combo ability very strong. The one thing that I guess is a little odd about her is since she's in the air so much, her ability to obviously hit you with a jump attack is very high. And thus she has just so many abilities to overhead you, but her actually ability to just hit you with actual lows is not great. So I don't know, generally against Nitara, block high a lot, I guess is the answer, right? Because her lows aren't too threatening. But yeah, just that general mobility in the air. Like, she's going to be able to stay in the air a long time. She's going to be able to traverse more distance than any other character in the game with just a simple jump for the most part. Her buff mechanic is very interesting in that it gives her a lot of options while the buff is live. Not the least of which, once again, I'm very impressed with this move. The blood steal. Just stay on top of your enemy. If they block, whatever, right? You're still draining health. You're still dealing damage. You're gaining health, right? You're basically winning. And this has got to be one of the best uses for a single bar in the game. So if you're looking for that vampire experience and just all sorts of wacky air mobility, Nitara is absolutely that character. Now Rain. Rain's a very interesting character. So on its surface, Rain is the zoner. He's got a stock fireball, knocks down on hit, by the way. It's always extra strong. He can hold it and charge it to do even more damage, and then that crumbles. And if it crumbles, you better believe you can follow up after the fact. And while he's holding it to charge it, you can also dash cancel it, and dash cancel it for free. Doesn't cost any meter. So base layer level 1, pretty cool, right? Now this, he also has big water puddles, and he can aim these close, far, and this is a low. And also, if it hits, you're gonna get comboed. So even from full screen, if I catch you with this bad boy, you better believe at bare minimum I can get a just projectile in. And I can do a lot better than that too. I could say, make it rain, as it were, right? So he has a very, for the relative size of the projectile, very quick giant projectile, which is aimable again. You can do close, you can do far. This is a mid, by the way, so no neutral ducking this bad boy. You see that rain, you better stand up while you're blocking real fast, because if you're crouching, you're gonna get smoked. And he can also hold it and delay it, or he can just straight up cancel as well, right? So holding it, canceling it, not committing to anything, and then say if you want to get really goofy, like then go for a throw or something like that, right? Got a lot of options. That's his base projectile suite. So a high, a low, which leads to full combos and tracks anywhere on the screen, as long as you aim it correctly anyways, and a gigantic F-off mid projectile. That's pretty good as far as the usual zoning goes. And if you're like, well, I believe I'll jump these fireballs, I'm not going to deal with that mess, right? Well, he also has an up fireball. Spoiler. He also has a massive hitbox. It's very active, very difficult to jump, so he can easily call out your jumps and then set up shop again. And then it's like, okay, well, I'll just outzone him, right? I got fireballs. Well, the thing about that is he's better at it than you are, right? He has a water shield that just dissipates all projectiles. So he can set up shop, hide behind it, and then just freely zone you back, right? So you gotta watch out. And also the enhanced version, if you choose to enhance it, it travels with him. So yeah, that's gonna be an issue. Like, in case it's anywhere unclear up to this point, Rain is the guy what throws lots of fireballs, right? He is a zoner. And to help with that, he's a wizard this time around instead of a ninja. He can set up portals, and if you set up a portal, you can teleport to those portals. Now, if you do it on the ground, FYI, he's always airborne. So if you want to set it up and then teleport to it right away, you can always get like a jump 1 or jump 2 in, because he'll always leave him airborne for a couple frames. And he can also set up multiple portals, and you get to choose which one you want to teleport to. You can either go to the first one or the second one. It's just a different motion, right? So you can trick people out, which teleport portal am I going into? And say you're lucky enough, you sandwich your opponent between 2 portals. Then you can detonate those portals, and basically a giant beam will go between the 2. And if the opponent's in between that beam, they get hit. So that's a lot of good stuff, right? That's just a specials. One thing, not necessarily gameplay, but I think he animates beautifully. Like, just his general moves and all the water flowing everywhere. Just, it looks like $1,000,000. It's really good. And hey, speaking of $1,000,000, he does have double overhead launcher. So it's something definitely you gotta watch out for. Oh, and just for fun's sake, he also has a low launcher too. So he himself, by himself, can't do too much. This is one of those deals where pick an appropriate cameo, right? And you can get a lot of extra damage off of it. But yeah, so on top of all this ridiculous zoning stuff I showed you, he has an actual 50-50 overhead low game to work with. And yes, by the way, Rain's Rain. So the around the world kick is still very much in action, even if he's a wizard now. And you can hold it. And if you hold it, it delays it a bit so you can get, combos after the fact. So Rain's very interesting in this game. So if you're looking for a classically strong zoner, and also someone who just has really, sick animations, I just really like these animations a lot. So if you're looking for the classic gold zoner and someone who's looking cool while doing it, Rain is the boy for you. Now, from one zoner to another, Shang Tsung. So Shang Tsung, out of the gate, he is a stance character. So he has the young form, and he's got the old form. And unlike many other stance characters in many other games, it's very free form to change into them. So say I sweep you, right? Something super basic. While I'm sweeping you, I can switch. While I hit you with something as basic as stand 1, I can switch. Stand 2, I can switch, right? You're allowed to freeform change while you're doing anything. So it's not difficult. You don't need to set up. You can do it whenever you want, very easily, shifting between the 2 stances. It is meant to be by design very easy. So what's the difference? So a lot of core moves are the same between the 2 characters. There is differences in the normals. Sure, yes. So basic example, right? But say stand 2-4 is a little different here. So regular Shang Tsung, young Shang Tsung blows the enemy back here. Old Shang Tsung, second hit's a low instead. Small differences like that, right? Comparatively, young Shang Tsung back 1-2, big launcher. Old Shang Tsung blows the enemy back. Not a lot of differences in the normals. And once again, a lot of normals are shared. So you don't have to think too hard. Once again, a lot of the button presses are the same. The big difference is in the specials. So young Shang is sort of classic Shang. Like, Mortal Kombat 3, because you can shoot 1 fireball, you can shoot 2 fireballs, or you can shoot 3 fireballs. And you may notice here, I'm not spending any meter or anything. I can just shoot 3 fireballs because I want to shoot 3 fireballs. I can shoot 2 or I can shoot 1, whatever I want to do. The option is mine and mine alone. And besides that, he's a bit of a sneaky boy here. Speaking of Mortal Kombat 3, bed of spikes. And this is basically a retreating move. So it obviously hits the enemy, sure enough, but he's going backwards while doing it. So if you're looking to basically escape or run away, this is a very strong way to do it. You can run away, gain space, and go back to throwing those fireballs. And he's got a little Wolverine in him, a little Berserker Barrage, right? So quarter circle forward 2, multi-strikes here, knocks the enemy back. So these are exclusive to young Shang. Now old Shang here, he can't throw the regular fireball so much. He throws ground fireballs. So now we're cooking with gas here. This is more reminiscent of, say, modern MK11 Shang Tsung. And he can throw a ground fireball far away. He can throw it close to him. He can throw it full screen. And of course, naturally enough, He's got those triple fireballs as well. Those triple fireballs, though, they do cost meter. They're a little stronger, you know, because, you know, they're like actively launching the enemy and get combos and stuff from it. Also, while we're in the air, he's got air fireballs. What he shoots into the ground pop back out. So air fireball may be a little bit of a misnomer, but same deal here. You can also control space on them, make them come in angles they want. Versus young Shang, you can throw air fireballs too, but they're more like the standard fare. There is a bit of an arc, so if you are close to the ground and close, you can hit a standing enemy. It is just a little tricky though. Now old Shang, instead of the runaway move, he has a serum stab. So that's just kind of like a regular strike. Although if you enhance it, well, you know, not to give away trade secret here, but Shang Tsung can turn into the enemy character. And that's what happens when you enhance it. It takes 2 meters because not only are you turning the enemy character, you are getting a damage buff. So normally, an uppercut would be 140 damage, and this is regardless of who you are, right? That's just a Mortal Kombat staple. But while you are effectively them, you know, 168, you get damage buff. All your moves are buffed. You're basically playing a superior version of the opponent's character. And don't worry, regardless if you're young, old Shang, whatever, you can freely turn to the enemy whenever you want. So that classic aspect of the character is still there. So don't worry about that. And whenever you want to, you can always switch back as well. And the final move here that's unique to old Shang Tsung, he has a claw too as well, but it's just more of a big F-off hit than young Shang's more Berserker Barrage. So yeah, very free form to switch between two. Once again here, back one two, launches with young, doesn't launch with old, right? But I can just do this, and as I'm hitting him, turn into old version of the character. And then, you know, say I'm looking to be a little silly here, right? Here we go back, here we go back, right? Like, I can just keep juggling you as long as I got meter with all the ground fireballs. And I started that all as young Shang. So, zoner for sure. You can't freely do both the ground fireballs and regular fireballs, but once again, it's literally just the quickest change away. You are meant to switch between the two on the fly, and it works both that way in neutral and in combo structure. You can do it whenever you want. It is truly not a big deal, and it's a very interesting take on the character because if you're a Shang Tsung fan, there's definitely two camps. People like the younger version, people like the older version. Now you got both, you play both, and they both take care of some of the very interesting aspects of the character. Some people love those ground fireballs. I love those ground fireballs myself. Some people love the classic fireballs. And why not just have both? Have them, the whole arsenal ready at all times. So if you're looking to zone, have a lot of screen control and some interesting age-switching combos, Shang Tsung is your guy. Now, Tanya, a lot of the returning cast favors their legacy versions, right? Tanya is one of the most infamous war criminals of fighting game history with her appearance in Mortal Kombat X. So she does not play like her Mortal Kombat X self. She's actually quite new and different, not the least of which, well, that should give you an idea, right? Her range in this game, just off basic normals, is actually fairly substantial. So now let's talk one of the big things here. Fireballs. Everyone's got, well, almost everyone has a fireball in this game. So her base fireball, legitimately nothing to write home about. Like, enhanced version's faster, is a mid, so he can't duck it as easily. But she has air fireball. And one thing that's traditionally been strong generally in fighting game history, and especially in NetherRealm Studios games, is the downward angled fireball. So if you're looking to get space on her, it's going to be difficult. Because this is very safe on block as well. Like, if I hit you and you block, I'm only -5, you know? Depending on how low I hit you to the ground, I can be -1 if I aim at your toes correctly. Even a badly spaced version, -11 at this distance, pretty much nobody's going to punish that. So she can toss these pretty willy-nilly. It's hard to get in the usual way. It can be somewhat difficult to jump depending on the angle. So just having this is very strong and very belligerent. Not the least of which, the enhanced version causes a crumple, and if you can crumple someone, you can get combos after the fact. So watch out for that. Also, yeah, her sweep. So once again, she's got the big tri-section staff, and her normals benefit from the range greatly. Like a very far-reaching 13-frame mid, that's almost criminal how far it reaches away given its relative speed. It's actually ridiculous. And yes, naturally, she can do strings and get full combos from that also as well. Now, one of the things that's interesting here is she has a bit of a buff. So it has 2 stages if you just do it twice, or you can hold it and try to get all in one go. And if you enhance it, it makes it just go faster. And what this does is unlock her old broken teleport. So you only get one go of it, but given the general strength of the move, it's good, right? So anytime you got a split second here, just build up a stack, right? When you get 2 stacks, then you can use the teleport, and you can go for it like whenever you want. Special cancels into everything. Say you're doing strings and you get blocked, you can say, you know what? Nah, it's still my turn. I don't want my turn to end, right? And you just keep going on the other side of the enemy. So yeah, the Tanya teleport quite strong. Also, the enhanced version does indeed launch the enemy for full air combos as well. So it's just something to just build up a quick stack every now and then when you can, because just having it on the table is just always quite strong. Now, besides that, when she wants to set up shop, as it were, she also has a multi-layered counter. So her eyes glow and the hands protect her. And you might be initially unimpressed, but once you get that initial block in, you actually got some options. So if you hold forward, you teleport to the other side. If you hold back, you blow them away, right? So you can get the more traditional counter, or you can go for some spacing. Depending on how big the windup of the move that you countered, the teleport might actually lead to a guaranteed punish, and then you get more overall damage. So that's a bunch of cool new stuff, right? But yeah, don't worry, at least she still has drill kick, right? So that still connects, EX. It does launch the enemy properly, so you can get follow-ups and all that kind of stuff from there as well. She has a move listed as the classic splits kick. It's not quite the same, as she takes a ride on the staff and just starts kicking you all crazily here. So that's a little bit different, but yeah, I guess that goes with the fact that she uses the staff now. Like this. What is that? What crazy special move is that? That's not even a special. That's just back 2. So she can control the skies in a very ridiculous way thanks to the staff. Range is the name of the game here. If she catches you, you better believe you're getting bopped. That's how it is. She controls the skies and hits on the way back too. So even if you whiff the initial part, she'll still get you. And sometimes whiffing is part of the game plan. Oh, stand 2. I whiffed it. What a dummy I am. Oh, wait. Gotcha. So she has a hit throw off her stand 2, right? And she can just go for it. And it has incredible range. Like, ideally, you don't even have to, like, get up close, use the combo. You can just abuse the whiff and go for the string right away, right? It's a high, so it's duckable, sure, but, you know, you take what you can get. It's got some good range, and if they duck it at max range, it's not like they're really going to get it punished, because you can block pretty quick after the fact, right? So your ability to do that, stand 3, once again, 2, has very good range, special cancelable. She has a lot of control of the screen thanks to the staff. So that's one of the more interesting aspects of the character, is she's got the range. And heck, even say if you're neutral ducking, try to avoid this guy, right? You gotta watch out, because she also has pretty much full screen lows as well, right? So she can catch you a lot of different ways. So she has a lot of fun ways to control the screen. And once again, let's go back to that air fireball too, because that's really, really good. A lot of fun ways to control the screen, some interesting defensive options. And if you're willing to just, you know, slowly build it up over the course of the match, whenever you get, say, a quick knockdown, if you want that old busted teleport back, it is there. So Tanya is pretty different in this version of Mortal Kombat, but I gotta say the changes are pretty interesting. So Princess Kitana, she is definitely one of the game's designated zoners. So yes, you toss them fans. That's definitely one of the aspects of the character. And now a lot of the fan tosses can be a little bit different. Like say, obviously the base fan, to get around it, you just duck it, right? Enhanced fans, not so much, because not only will they hit mid, they also pop the enemy up and you can get follow-ups from it. And if you're close enough, you can get full combos. So we have that. We have the traditional fan lift. It's a bit different this time around though. She doesn't just wave at the air in front of her. It's an actual projectile and it's aimable as well. So you can get the regular version, which goes right up in the air, difficult to jump. You can have a close version and also one that is far. And as you can see, it hits from pretty far away. So you can actually, once again, bop people with multiple hits off one projectile. More projectiles? We got them, don't you worry. She can actually have another aimable projectile, which comes an upwards arc and comes down to the ground. So once again, this kind of arc, if you're jumping, well, you're gonna get hit. So if you're looking to jump your way in here, either just from far out, you're gonna get bopped, or if she does it while she's closer up, you still get bopped. So it basically is part of the anti-air part of the character. She controls the regular zone of space with the regular fan toss. If you want to do fan lift, that controls the air in one angle, depending on how you aim it. And if you do the fancy flick, yes, that is the name of the move, then you control a different aspect of the air, right? So, name of the game is projectiles, and the enhanced version also pops up the enemy, by the way. So, if you're looking for something basic, you can get something basic or get something more involved. And don't worry, things like her square wave is still there, so she can still traverse the skies very easily. Now, other new things is she can set traps based on the ground. And if the enemy goes into the traps, well, it explodes. And it explodes with a launcher. You're sensing a theme here, right? A lot of her things launch the enemy, and then from there, you can get all sorts of follow-ups. And actually, as far as the aerial part of the character goes, once again, I mentioned the square wave, she can throw air fans. She has air fan lifts, which are also controllable depending on the distance. So she can control a lot of the upper portion of the screen as well. Now, besides all that, don't worry. Some of her signature long-range moves are here. So stuff like back two, she can definitely outrange a good chunk of the cast and get, you know, easy combos, all that kind of stuff if you happen to connect. Even though you wouldn't think it for her, she even has a couple sources of plus frames. And of course, naturally too, good mid starters, nice safe on block, and if you happen to get the hit, then guess what? It's combo time, right? So her normal suite is also pretty good, as well as her just general control of the screen. For many decades at this point, if you want to play Kitana, it's because you just want to spam fan toss, right? And don't worry, throwing hella fans is exactly what you're going to be doing with this character in this version of the game. Now, Mileena. So, admittedly, I am a Mileena fan. I have been for many, many years. I think this is the best version of Mileena ever. I'm not necessarily talking like tier power, but just overall what the character can do and what the character's about. This version has it all. So, one, you got the side tosses, don't worry. And yes, low side toss is part of the moveset without having to be a variation. Do you got teleports? You betcha. And don't worry, air teleports are here, and heck, we even got a new kind of teleport. One where you start up from the ground up and work your way up. And funnily enough, leads to all sorts of combo potential as well. Do we got ball roll? You better believe it! And leading to all the silly combos you would expect. And enhanced ball roll, well, geez Louise, we're just going to town. And you might notice, Mileena, Tarkatan, right? She actually has the Tarkatan blades now, not just the size. So they're going all in on her Tarkatan appearance. And now the old Mileena ball, sure, but how about air Mileena ball? So if you're in the air and you do a Mileena ball, you start tossing out all sorts of size. And it doesn't quite go full screen, and that's the one weakness of the character is size in general. Don't go full screen. She has to have a weakness somewhere, because I think this version of the character is quite strong. But still, it's just very interesting that she can control the air in a way she never was able to do before. And EX Air Ball is basically Kano Ball, except Kano Ball, but it's cancelable into other air special moves, like Teleport or the Air Sai, right? So, just very different from the usual Mileena. So, like, classic Mileena combo structure, you know, kind of works the same way you would think, right? Do ball, do a follow-up, sure. But thanks to new things like our EX Teleport, things change up quite a bit. Since she has so many new toys to play around with and more options than she usually does, things just hit a bit more different this time around here. It's just a very fun rendition of the character. Oh, and this time around, she still has decent enough low pokes. Forward 4 is a proper overhead, safe on block. So if you're just looking to scam out a win with a quick overhead, you have these options. Stand 3, 4 also is an overhead. So if they're expecting that overhead, then you just go, say, quick low Sai, right? That's always fun. And speaking of the Sai, so yes, doesn't go quite full screen. Enhanced version does, though. And the enhanced version takes 2 meters, and there's a good reason for this. That's very expensive. So one, it destroys all their fireballs. So that's handy, but other people can do that for 1 bar. What's different here is the hit grab. So Mileena goes in and attacks the enemy, bites them. And it's more than just that. So if we do our hit, that fall down, we can actually hit him after the fact. So we can actually get combos. So for 2 bars, hard call out, if I know you're going to throw with a fireball, and this is not even necessarily the most optimal combo, but yeah, you can do a lot of damage of just calling out the usual fireball war nonsense. So depending on how silly you want to get, if you want to pretend you're Sonic the Hedgehog, that's absolutely an option if you got the meter for it. And just some fundamentals, she's got some decent strings here. Stand 1, stand 2 are both good, have good strings. She has a relatively quick mid and forward 1, with good follow-ups that lead to good combos as well. So she has a lot of the basic tools you need that are pretty decent. And all in all, just this version of Mileena is very, very good in my opinion. Now, General Shao, we're in big boy territory. How do we know we're in big boy territory besides the obvious look of the character? Well, how about something like this? Back 2. So back 2, meterless launcher. We always love those. And, you know, it can definitely go into itself a couple times, which is handy. Now, normally, if a move launches, it's more negative than not. For General Shao, though, that back 2 launcher is actually plus on block. So if you block this, your reward for blocking it is if we both mash right away, I'm still going to win. So that's how we know we're in big boy territory, because big boys impose their will on the enemy. Now you may notice, not trying to be subtle about it here, he's got a big F-off axe. And the axe is definitely a big part of the character. So for certain things like stand 2, his stand 2 range is absurd. So if he catches you with a stand 2, and more often than not, this distance, you're probably doing a slower move than this. This is a very fast move. This is 8 frames. This is wickedly fast. So if you're going for a slower mid or something, try to, you know, contest at this range. He will beat you and win. And then at that point, we're going to Combo City. That's what's going to be happening next. And his combos are easy and effective. So I guess that's one of the big things out of the gate there. You may have noticed I dropped my axe on the ground. That's actually part of the character. He's not quite a full stance character, but when his axe is on the ground, it does eventually come back over time, FYI. His axe is on the ground, he gets a different moveset. Now, we talked about stand 2, and it's very fast, and it is, but a lot of the other axe moves are not quite as fast. A lot of them are more on the slow side of things, right? Which is fine. That's how it goes. But when the axe is on the ground, he gets new normals, and these normals are quite quick, including back 1, which is a launcher. So normally his regular back 1 is a mid, and not the fastest mid in the game. It is slow, unfortunately, right? Them's the breaks. But when the axe is gone, back 1 comes a much faster mid that launches. It's completely safe on block. And of course, naturally, do whatever combos. Part of your combo structure, by the way, is you can throw people into the axe and then spike them back down to the ground. You got to be somewhat near the axe. If you're a little too far away, the move won't come out. And he has multiple moves that use the axe on the ground, by the way. Like, say, this bad boy here. And him picking the axe up and slamming it is also advantage on block, by the way. And actually, when it's on the ground, you can pick it up whenever he wants. That's how it goes. Or you can just slam it in a big full-screen earthquake that's a low. And you got to block low every time. It hits the entirety of the screen. And if you happen to be very unfortunate and it's above your head, it's an overhead, then a low. So you have to stand block and immediately crouch block. And if you fail that, if you get crouch block first, you just get hit. If you stand block it successfully, but then are too slow to crouch block, you still get hit. So you really got to watch out. This is actually one of the most deadly things that can happen to you in the game, is be directly underneath this bad boy. Because you got to be very quick on going one block to the other. Another thing he has is he has a baked-in 50-50 high-low game. He has back 3, which is a low, which is 20 frame startup, and forward 2, which is an overhead, so also 20 frame startup. So they both hit on the exact same frame. So that guy tells you, oh, I'll just fuzzy block everything. Nah, bro, not happening here. And they both have hit grabs attached to them. And suitably devastating looking. Now, one thing about this is, with the proper use of cameos, you can actually extend some of these combos as well. Now, the thing about both these mix too is this is where cameos come in great. Because, you know, the can mix-up's great and all, but, you know, get a little bit of damage. But wouldn't you rather have more damage? So, depending on the cameo, you can get exactly that. More damage. And we all love more damage, right? So, you know, healthy 30-plus chunk is much better than the usual hit grab we're getting here. Which is still not nothing, right? But more damage is more damage. Now, when you have the axe on too, he is able to contest at full screen, even though he's meant to be more in your face. He has basically effectively a giant Quake ground pound. Slower startup, but the effect is near instant. And it is a low, so you have to block crouching. Now, keep in mind, unfortunately, it doesn't play well against any kind of like airborne projectiles. Because if they're in the air, you know, ground pound moves don't work so good against airborne opponents. And a lot of the better zoners in the game can be in the air while throwing fireballs. So it's a decided weakness, but that's very much, you know, well, by design, right? He's meant to be in your face and brutalize you. So yeah, that's basically the idea. You work your way in. If you have the axe, you have better tools to poke with. If you're all the way in, Your normals are actually better for the most part up close without the axe because they're faster, a bit more reliable, which is really good and really handy. So if you like swinging for the fences and landing those big swings, Shao Kahn is sort of tailor-made for that. Oh, I guess he's General Shao now. Shao Kahn eventually, right? But yeah, so big weapon, be belligerent with the big weapon, swing for the fences, and once again, for him swinging for the fences, that's plus on block, right? So you're heavily encouraged to do so. And yeah, if you just want to do big boy things, Shao is the guy. Reiko. So Reiko is another character returning that has not been in Mortal Kombat in a hot minute. And then your first question is, does he throw the ninja stars? And yes, you better believe he still throws those ninja stars. And he can throw a lot of them if you're willing to spend the meter. Which is good because they're all mids, so that means no neutral ducking it. And now, just to throw it out there, he is one of 2 characters in the game with a command grab. The thing though to note, this command grab is a high. So this means if the opponent is crouching, the grab will whiff. You have to be standing or blocking for it to hit. So Reiko, he's got a thing against people who crouch too much. Now there is the enhanced version of the grab. That is a true mid. It is the only command grab in the game, the only throw in the game really, that is a true mid. However, it does take 2 meters, which for my money is a lot. But, you know, that's the game. But he is the holder of the only mid grab in the game. So if you're neutral ducking and he's willing to spend 2 meters, he can still grab you. So Reiko doesn't like people who crouch duck. Thankfully, he's got some really good ways to deal with that. Like, say, his kicks. You see we got this, like, cool particle effect on him, right? I guess that means he's kicking extra hard. This is not for show. This is the actual range of the move. So, like, from that far away, I can connect. So his ability to control space, you know, despite being nominally like the guy what has the grab, his ability to control space is actually phenomenal. He can just hit you from distances that are mildly ridiculous. And basically all of his grounded kicks are like that. So he's got some range. Now he is one of the characters in the game with a counter attack, which is pretty basic, but if you enhance it, then it leaves the enemy standing and you can get combos from it. And one of the things that's interesting here is he has a command run. So if you hold it, well, he'll just keep running. Whenever you let go, he'll go for a low. And you can also cancel out of it to fake people out. And if you hold up, it actually becomes, instead of a low, a mid launcher, which naturally you can combo from. He's got various serviceable buttons here, all sorts of easy hit convertible combos. So meterlessly, it's actually fairly trivial for him just to grab you and get some damage in. And if you want to meter burn the move, the low becomes a proper launcher instead of just smacking the enemy around. And while you're juggling people around, he also has a big ground and pound move. So good for combos, always side switches. If you enhance it, it's basically just more damage. But if you're just looking for an extra cash out, it is there. Now, another interesting thing for Reiko is more normals. So 4-2, very quick, very fast forward his overhead, dunks the enemy, big splat knockdown. No combo ability, but very safe on block. And good pushback as well. And then back 2. So back 2, just a regular high. And if the opponent gets hit, it is splat out, so no combo ability. But it is an amazing +8 on block. So rest assured, unless they do something that's armored, whatever you're doing first is going first. So this is one of those situations where +8, you can do just about anything. You go for your mids. You can do whatever you want, right? Short of you going for a high and them going for a low to duck the high, anything you're going to do, you're going to win. So then naturally, the first incentive is to block after the fact. If they block this, keep blocking. And then you can try to do it again, steal more turns, or maybe go for that grab, right? If they're blocking already. So there's some really interesting situations you can enforce with this. A move that is so ridiculously plus on block. Almost better if they block it rather than they take the hit. That's very cool and interesting. And I guess the big thing is the fatal blow. It's very different than most people's. His actually is a throw. So if you're blocking, you will get grabbed. Simple as that. And the usual thing is, well, okay, if you're going to throw me, and especially telegraphed like this, I'll just jump. But if you hold up while you do it, he actually air grabs instead. So if you jump after the super flash, and admittedly, a lot of games work this way, you'll just get hit. You're just going to get hit. So you kind of have to guess. Is he going to do the regular version, and it's just regular fatal blow, or is he going to do the hold up version that'll get me if I try to jump out? So he can enforce interesting grappler 50-50 that kind of way. It's a mind game. Are you going to jump or ain't you? And if he guesses right, you're going to take a lot of damage. And if you guess right, then you're going to deal a lot of damage to him. So it kind of, you know, you're both flipping a coin here, but that's the way it's got to be. So Reiko, a very interesting addition to the game. Very bulldoggy, very bully. He definitely wants to be in your face. Powerful plus frames, powerful overhead, strong normals. Like that's really the big tale, is his normals are kind of ridiculous. He can compete at ranges that you wouldn't expect. I know when a character has a command grab, you think they're the grappler. Him, I actually more realize him as like a threat from a range, because it's just hard to get around the buttons he has. So if any of this sounds appealing to you, then Reiko is your guy. Sindel is definitely a zoner's zoner. So we got the traditional fireball. We got a low hitting fireball as well. So you do have to crouch block that. And what she has is, I gotta say, pound for pound, the best air fireball in the game. Not for on its face value, you know, you jump and you do it because it just goes across, right? Whatever. But it's the instant air version, the one where you do it very low to the ground for a few reasons. So for one, you can do it real low to the ground. So a standing opponent, if they're just walking forward, will still get hit by it, right? So they still have to neutral duck, which is, you know, a problem. And since it's just a smidge higher, if you do it like this, it's also much more difficult to jump because you might go into it versus a more traditional fireball on the ground. You know, you might be able to pass over it. And the one thing specifically about this, you can do it so low to the ground, like right there. I believe it's even a little bit lower than the actual normal fireball, like where you're just standing. So like if you do it so low to the ground, you can, it just becomes obnoxious. Not the least of which is, say we purposely whiff here, right? We'll purposely whiff a few times. Notice how the distance between the two characters was created, right? So while you're being annoying and throwing your instant air fireballs, she's constantly moving backwards. This is shades of Mortal Kombat 9 Cabal, which is part of the reason why his projectile was so annoying. It's because while you're trying to chase him down, he's gaining space backwards and backwards. So this is very powerful, to say the least. And that's just layer 1, right? That's just me selling you on the character, one of the obvious strengths. Sindel can do a whole heck of a lot more, not the least of which is flying is back. So you can fly, hover in the air, you can do jumping normals from your fly, whatever works for you, that's great. Certain normals here are keyed to be airborne as well, so like back two, you can fly directly from back two. So you can do back two, and then fly and do an aerial normal. And if you do the enhanced fly, it can even naturally combo. So that's really interesting and fun stuff. And yes, certain things here, the classics, like the Banshee Scream, absolutely in. Got a fair bit of range to it as well. Now, it creates a capture state, but it does not last terribly long. So don't think you're going to like work your way in from full screen and like get full combos. It's not going to work that way. But it will, at bare minimum, guarantee a fireball for a combo or something like that. So guaranteed damage is always a good damage. Now, one thing Sindel has is range. Her hair, powerful tool as always. Say her sweep here. So she can sweep you from, let's say, a distance other characters simply cannot, right? So this is going to be a really good poke, and as a sweep at low profiles her to avoid highs as well. Say her down 3. Her down 3 is just a ridiculous poke. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's a really good check in keeping people in place. Her back 3, also way low and very fast, 13 frames, and launches. Now, she by herself can't do too much with it, but say you had a cameo to work with, right? It'll make it very good. So very long range, low launcher, and just the animations. A lot of her animations, she uses her flight powers to help herself back up, which it's just flavor, right? But it's really good flavor. I like that. Like she can't be bothered to like re-stretch her legs. I'll just fly my way back up. So before we go any further here, just as far as normals go, she still has forward four cartwheel, and it's still good mid as it was before. And she also actually has an original special cartwheel as well from back in the day, and that is an overhead, so that's handy. So the big thing about Sindel, besides, once again, I want to impress upon you just how good her instant air fireballs are, because they're really, really good, is her ability to mess with cameos. So naturally you call a cameo, and you have your little cameo meter here in the corner, and it takes a while to regenerate, but she can inspire people, and then the cameo regeneration rate is actually fairly significantly improved. So when you have the buff up, you just get your cameos back faster, which means you can spam cameos more and more. So if you have a spammable cameo attack already, it becomes more spammable. Or if you have one that just takes a very long time to get going, like just it drains the whole bar and you gotta wait it out. When you have this up, the regeneration rate is just simply superior. It's about double what it normally is. So that just makes your life a lot easier. So Sindel, more than any other character in the game, plays very well with cameos, and that's very fun and interesting. But not only that, it's how she interacts with the opponent's cameos. So say, you know, get hit with the combo breaker. You need your cameo to do the combo breaker. That's well and good, but let's say your cameo serves me now. What happened there? So the cameo buff, if you enhance it, it actually disables the opponent's combo breaker. The opponent's cameo will bow to you as Sindel, and then basically there's just going to be a big old explosion here, right? And you get the combo from it. So they burn 3, they will lose all their meter. They lose the meter that's spent, and they get betrayed instead. So if you are fighting Sindel, make sure to watch out for that animation, because if you do it, you just wasted a whole lot of meter for nothing. And not only that, she can mess with the opponent's cameos in more ways. So Scorpion's coming out here. Nah, he's done. She can basically stun the opponent's cameo. Now, depending on the character, it's better or worse, right? Certain cameos are on screen longer, like say the Kano cameo, if they're throwing the knives. But if she can catch you, she can stun them out and lock them out. And if you enhance it, she owns that cameo. She gets 1 free use of that cameo. So, see the Scorpion there? He has like a little bit of a particle effects on his head, but it didn't use the meter. And say I'm out of meter, I can't call Scorpion, but if I hit that Scorpion, I still get my mind-controlled version of Scorpion back, right? So you can use theirs no matter who it is, and you get 1 free use of it. So on a lot of levels, Sindel interacts with the whole cameo mechanic more than any other character in the game. So basically, long story short, if you like throwing them fireballs, she's a good character for it. If you like long-range pokes and harassing people and gimmicks like flight and all that kind of stuff, that's good. And if you want to interact with the cameo system in a way that other characters simply cannot, then she is a pick for you. Smoke is our mix-up character and has all sorts of guess high, guess low nonsense. Now, in a lot of games, you're like, okay, I'll work my way in, now start guessing high, low, but this is Mortal Kombat. We don't do that. We're a little bit crazier than the other games. So if I want to mix you up with, say, a low, okay, there we go. My teleport attack, which I can do in the air, by the way, is a low. Sure, why not? And say I'm full screen, I want to hit you with that overhead. There we go. So I can throw my smoke grenade, and wherever you are on the screen, once it passes your threshold, I will smoke you with an overhead. And, you know, we want to spend a little meter, that low. We can get air combos from it. And that overhead, we can actually fake out the overhead. Oh, where'd I go? So now instead of the overhead, I'm just actually invisible. And of course, when you're invisible, guessing low or guessing overhead gets a lot harder when you can't even see what's happening. And of course, yeah, strings, right? Strings that go low into overheads. We got overheads into lows. That back two, by the way, overhead, very long range for what it is. Very good. Now, one of the interesting things about him is his rush special, Vicious Vapors. So he just kind of rushes at you and hits you. Interesting enough on base, right? While he's fully smoked, he is intangible, cannot be hit. And if you enhance it, he is projectile invincible on frame 1. So his ability to just circumvent people's stuff is pretty strong. And what's really fun is you can cancel out of it. You don't have to commit to the move. And this cancel actually increases your combo ability because you can use it and freely. It does not cost meter to extend combos. So say forward 1-2, we'll go into the dash and we'll cancel it. And then we can go right into another forward 1-2. Now, you cannot do this infinitely because it'd be a very easy infinite combo, right? You can do it once per combo, but still, that's very strong. It's meterless combo extension. So a fish. Oh, hey, we got the hit. And now it's combo time. So there we go, right? And it's thanks to being able to meterlessly cancel out of that teleport dash that we can go for it. We can fish with a better string than the actual launcher, but we can confirm, get the hit, cancel out, then go into the launcher, and then get whatever combos we want. So very, very handy. So if you're looking to be a tricky boy, all sorts of overheads, all sorts of lows, that teleport too, which is a low, and it's a little slower than some other teleports, but it's a low, so come on, right? You can also fake that out. You do not have to commit. And the air version, you can just hold it and just not commit, so while they're blocking, then you can just go and throw them or whatever, right? So Smoke is a very tricky character. The one thing I guess you could label at him is, other than obviously like the extreme range of the smoke bomb and the teleports, his actual like moment-to-moment range is not great, except for maybe forward 4, which is all highs. It's very handy in that if they block, it is actually fairly advantage on block, but they can just neutral duck it and punish it. But, you know, risk reward. But if you get it, if it hits, great. If it gets blocked, great. It's still your turn, right? But you do have to hope that they're not on the ball enough just to neutral duck it and punish you on the fly. But if you like being a tricky, invisible ninja boy, then Smoke is your character for sure. Now, Reptile, fan favorite. So how is Reptile working out in Mortal Kombat 1? Well, he's a ninja, a human ninja, except for when you do any classic Reptile move, then he turns into the Reptile. So he has Spit. Now, Spit is more of a close range tool, enhanced version a little further, but it is not a full screen fireball, FYI. And the classic Force Ball is returning as well, but once again, a little more short range. You can control it closer, you can control it further. The far version is like 90% of the screen, not quite full screen. And if you're willing to burn a little meter, you can have that nice slow one that you can just, you know, walk behind. Or you can have an extra fast one, and all Force Balls do launch the enemy meterlessly or not. You don't have to spend bar on it, but it is a good way to launch and then get combos from. And Reptile's slide still intact, although it's a bit more vicious this time around. It's like a gator death roll, but it still hits low, so they gotta watch their toes. That part of the character is still very much intact. So now the thing that we've seen with Reptile Special that he can kind of shapeshift in between forms is a lot of his normals heavily benefit from this. So this is basic stand 3. You would not expect a stand 3 to hit from this far away, right? But for Reptile, it does. It has range and a half, to say the least. So many of his normals, he will turn into the Reptile, as it were. And generally speaking, when they do, he gets big range buff. Like his uppercut is maybe, I would say, among the best uppercuts in the game. The arc is gigantic, very strong, just plain better than a lot of other uppercuts, thanks to the fact that he turns into the Reptile and gets a much bigger hitbox. Although he doesn't even have to necessarily turn the Reptile to have range. Like, look at his sweep. Yeah, that's kind of messed up, right? His sweep range is ridiculous. Like, it has no business hitting from this far away as it does, but use it and abuse it. It's pretty dang good. He also has some fun modular moves, like back 2. So back 2, if you tap it, it's a quick overhead, not too much swing home route or whatever, right? If you hold it a little bit here, it becomes a splat out. And if you hold it all the way, he just turns into the Reptile, and then it becomes a proper full-on bounce that you better believe you can hit and combo from. He also has forward 2, fantastic mid-normal, very fast 12-frame startup. And from there, easy hit confirms, right? So he can toss a Force Ball, get whatever combos you want. Or forward 2, 3 is a meterless launcher in and of itself. So that's really, really handy. Forward 2, 4, big old low. You can even try to purposely whiff this just to get the use of the low mid-screen, because it hits from about 50% of the screen away. So it's just a great cure-all button. He's got a lot of options from it. He can do a lot with one basic button. And as we kind of went over, a lot of his buttons are just really good all in all. Now, we've went over a bunch of the specials, a bunch of the really good normals. And don't get me wrong here, he still has even more specials, right? He has the classic dash. That's still there. Can he turn invisible still? You better believe it. Although it takes a second. It takes a second. You got to earn it as you would, right? So there's that. And he has an all-new special move as well. So the one move is called Falling Fangs. This is air only, but he'll teleport into the air basically and fall down as an overhead. It's quite quick. And although it's air only, you can do it basically like a frame off the ground. So don't let that like stop you when you're kind of working your way in. So basically, if say the enemy's throwing fireballs and you know, oh, I can't quite punish you, my jump wasn't there in time, right? You can see it and go, oh, gotcha, and just slam them on the head. And really good for just reactions in general if you're close enough. So all in all, I think he's fairly impressive in this game. He's got all the classic stuff you would want, some new tricks. They souped up his normals quite a bit by introducing the reptile factor of the character. So his range is very strong. He's got really good workhorse normals like forward 2. And all in all, I just think he's impressive and fun in this game. So Raiden, despite being a new man, as it were, in this game, he's just a man. He's no longer a god. He's still classic Raiden in a lot of ways, although a couple new tricks and some interesting strings. So basically, if y'all want to shoot lightning, you can still shoot lightning, although his lightning tosses here is a little different because you can hold it. And the more you hold it, the more lightning you get. And the enhanced version, if you want to hold it, it charges that lightning a lot faster. So if you just want to dump a lot of trash onto the screen, Raiden's actually exceptional at it. Now don't worry, some things are still some things, right? If you want to Superman people, it's good. The air version now kind of arcs downwards a bit. So if you're from full screen, you can kind of arc downward into the enemy, which is good and bad depending on the situation. Since it doesn't go straight across, it means you can't hit someone who is also in the air from across the screen, but it's the new era. Things like classic combo extensions are still very much to be found in the game. So don't worry like that. You can shock them, spend a little meter, bounce them, keep recomboing. He also has a little bit of electromagnetism. So down back 3 is a move that will actually suck in the opponent against their will. So it doesn't have like full screen range. They got to be a little bit in that radius, but it's very interesting. Also, the enhanced version, if it whiffs, you can just literally toss it at him. So it gives him another layer to work with. Now I mentioned strings. So he's got some interesting stuff here. He's got among the best low strings in the game. So just forward 4, very fast startup for what it is. Goes in double low, and then, you know, full combo extension, all that fun stuff, right? So that's really handy. Back 2, traditionally an overhead for him. Still an overhead, and this is fairly fast for what it is, and also almost completely safe on block. Only very few characters can actually punish it, and deals a respectable 8%. So once you have them really worried about watching their toes for combos, it's very easy to sneak one of these guys in. 242 is a very interesting string. It's long, has an initial follow-up, makes it very easy to hit confirm into for various combos, as you can see here. It does have some fun strings here like 434. It's a double overhead launcher, so that's certainly pretty interesting. And since you don't necessarily have to follow through with it, if you put the Fear of God into him with the double overhead, you can just let the first part go and then immediately go into your low combo starter, right? So you can enforce some fun layers of mix up there. And before we close out on Raiden, he has a lot of classic stuff you like, and I think he has some really solid just basic strings and basic offense. He can do basically everything he needs to do. He's got that good teleport. So wherever you are on screen, it's fairly quick for what it is. He will appear behind the enemy. So as always, oh, I called your fireball out, right? Depending on the speed and recovery, some people have better fireballs than others. That's just how the game works, right? Either you'll get a punish, or depending on the character, you might just have some slight advantage. You can enforce whatever you want to enforce. But yeah, a good teleport is always very handy to have. And at bare minimum, if you're impatient, you can always just say, I'm in whenever you want, and you don't got to stress it too much. Although, keep in mind, you know, it's not free to do. If they're not doing anything, they just see you teleporting, they will tap you in the head, so don't go too crazy on that. But all in all, this version of Raiden is not revelatory or anything, but it's a fun version of the character that I do enjoy. Now, Kung Lao, this is a very interesting version of the character. So a lot of the classic stuff is there, but we're not handicapped by variations anymore, so you just get to have all the moves. So hey, we got Buzzsaw Hat Toss, and this knocks down on hit. And any projectile that knocks down on hit is a good projectile. But of course, it's a high, so oh well, I can just neutral duck it, right? But good thing, we got Classic Hat Toss as well, which is a mid. And yes, like you expect, you can aim it high, you can aim it lower to the ground, whatever you want. So he has both options, Buzzsaw and regular Hat Toss. So whatever you think is appropriate for the moment, you got to work with it. Other things like Dive Kick, you better believe it's still there. The enhanced dive kick is a bounce, so you get all sorts of combo ability from it, which is really good. Also, we got one of our new specials here, the Shaolin Fist. So those Ip Man punches he's sort of famous for, now just baked in as a regular special. So he has a suite of interesting normals, like say back 3, so quick mid, and has an overhead follow-up and a low follow-up, right? So that kind of stuff writes itself, basically. That's good, that's interesting. And Not a lot of damage, but it's good to like sneak out a win, right? Just want to scam someone out. It's a good way to do it. And speaking of scamming people out, back 1. Now, I know this looks like exactly nothing, right? Looks like nothing. And it has a string follow-up too, back 1-4. But what this is actually the single fastest move in the game. So that's what makes this really cool. So 6 frames, -7 sort of the sweet spot in the game, where you're technically safe, except for very rare specials. Check the Lime section for more on that. But since normals can be done at reverse timing, that means a 7-frame move, like stand 1, crouch 1, cannot punish a move that's -7. But since this is -6, you can punish. So that's what makes this so good. So say you know your frame data, right? Okay, we're going to cancel this in the up kick. We'll do the enhanced version. So one of our new moves. Launch out the enemy. And yeah, say you use those new Ip Man punches as well. Good combos, and you can punish moves that are literally otherwise not punishable by any other character. So that's good. Also good, strings like 1-2-1, soft launch. Not a full launch, because that's back 2-4. That is our big boy meterless launch. And that's good to have those. I've been singing those praises the whole video, right? But say with a soft launch, say we hit with Buzzsaw Hat in the corner. In the corner, Buzzsaw and juggling, it gets up there, man. You're going high in the sky, right? So we can actually get a good amount of juggle potential from that, right? So like 30% off a meterless string, stand 1 starter. Not bad at all. And we got multiple ways we can end combos now here, because we got more new moves besides just that. We got the concussion. So this used to be called the Kanugi earlier, right? So the concussion, he's like smashing your head in. And basically, you can choose, do I leave them same side or do I flip them out? Now, obviously in the corner, you'd probably want to leave them same side. But other parts of the screen, switching sides might be a bit more appealing. Also appealing, the enhanced version forces a crumple state, so you can get hits after the fact. So regardless of how long your combo's been to that point, you can always get that crumple state. And say you can be tricky, use a cameo to restand them, and now all of a sudden, hey, that high-low we talked about earlier, you just ate a full combo, now your frame disadvantage against me gets high-low, maybe for the game. So once again, cameo choice very key, not the least of which, say 4-2. So 4-2, if you played a lot of MKX, this is triggering like your MKX vibes real bad, I bet. So no, down 1 ain't working after the fact. This is just by itself an overhead. But say proper cameo use, you can get follow-ups pretty easily. And now what is a simple 5% overhead can become a lot more depending on your spacing, depending on your cameo. You can get a lot out of it. So this is one of those things where your cameo choice can turbocharge one of your basic moves. By itself, not worth much unless it's going to close out a round. But with a cameo, it can be worth a lot. And we talked, you know, other moves. Buzzsaw's back. Regular hat toss, we got it. Right. So we got a lot of the classic moveset. We even have spin. We don't have teleport, unfortunately. That's for cameo, Kung Lao. The thing about spin is it's a bit different than it usually is. So say we're getting attacked, right? Spin has armor. And like you don't got to spend meter or whatever. It just has armor in and of itself. And if you enhance it, you can start moving around the screen. And when you let go of the button is when the explosion happens. The explosion has got some range to it. The only weakness as it stands, I guess you could say, well, I know what it is. I'm just going to wait it out. Thankfully, hit down, down, you cancel out. So you're not committed to having to go for the full animation, the full spin or anything like that. If you don't like what you're seeing, you just cancel out, no risk. So that's really strong. It's different than how it's usually been, you know. Usually it launches, but, you know, Kung Lao not really hurting for launchers in this version of the game. So it having a new role, very welcome. So all in all, I think this is a very complete version of the character. He's got lots of great specials, lots of great strings. He can just compete pretty well at just about every aspect of the game, which I think is really good. Good all-rounder. Of course, most people will just spam dive kick, right? Because that's how it is, especially because the EX dive kick bounces. So just Hail Mary, hope for the best. But that's the Kung Lao curse. Maybe now that there's no more random teleports, people will try to learn how to play the character for real. God bless, right? But yeah, as the character, I really like Kung Lao in this version of the game. I think he's really cool. Now, Ashrah. This is our resident sword character. Now, to note, this is not the default skin for the character, But this is the skin that has the hat. And if you're an old timer like me, you know Ashrah needs to have a hat. So there we are. Anyways, sword means long effing range. Her normal stuff like 4-2 is basically just a singleton poke, but it's a singleton poke that like other characters cannot contest the range of, right? So this is part of the deal you're getting in. You got the sword, so therefore you got the range. Also, stuff like her back 3, which is a low, amazing range for a low. So that's one thing out of the gate. She's got the range. And just good range generally too. Like stand 2 hits from a very appreciable distance away. And you can go into strings, get combos, all that kind of stuff. Very fast for what it is. People have to be ducking from ranges they usually don't do ducking attacks from to get under it. So characters will struggle to deal to and contest with just a lot of her buttons. So I like talking about buttons. I like talking about normals. That's always one of my favorite parts about fighting games, but don't let me bury the lead here. Ashrah is a stance character. So we default to light stance, which has its own set of moves. We can also enter dark stance, and you can switch between the two whenever you want. Dark stance is the non-default stance and will eventually go away. And for my money, overall, I think she's stronger in dark stance, but there's a gimmick. So let's look at one of her special moves. So it's quarter circle forward, 1. So in and of itself, on the light stance, it's a slow fireball. Not quite full screen, unless you enhance it, and there you go. It's a mid, which means no neutral ducking it. And it's very tall, so it's actually mildly difficult to jump, right? And then if we switch stances here, now the same move is a ground-based fireball, which is a low. You have to crouch block this. Also, it is aimable. Has 3 distances. And given just the overall range of the move, it's actually, in my opinion, a quite dominant move overall. Also, every time we hit the enemy, you see these little purple glowy deals, right? That is not for show. So that is basically stacks. We have 3 stacks up. And now when we hit the character with a special move with the light stance, it will now do bonus damage. So it'll do whatever it'll do, and an additional 2% on top of that. So it just makes your hits really strong. Now on the flip here, there's another special, which is actually kind of shared between the 2 stances. Quarter circle back and 2. It's effectively a big sword flurry, right? And it's effectively the same between the 2 stances. However, in dark stance, because it's multiple hits, it applies multiple stacks of the debuff, right? And conversely, the light version will burn all those debuffs. So it makes it do a lot more damage than it normally would. So nominally on paper then, besides the big pokes, besides the big range, you can kind of, if you want to really break it down, it comes down to building stacks and then burning stacks. The various specials of the dark stance will build stacks on the enemy. And once you are in light stance, then you do whatever specials in light stance and it will burn the stacks on the enemy for bonus damage. And another thing about the character is ghost travel. So it changes a little bit between the stances. If you just let it rock in light stance, it's a hit. If you hold down, it's a different kind of hit that can pass through the enemy. You can also hold the move to travel further. Or conversely, if you hit back, you just cancel out of it, right? And if you are in the dark stance, now the base version is just a teleport. It doesn't hit by itself. Although you can hold down still to get the hit. And of course, build stacks. And just like before, you can cancel out of it. And both of these you can do in the air. So effectively, the light stance one's a little bit more offensive one. The dark stance one's a little bit more about traversal. They both can attack regardless. They can both be canceled. It's just basically a way to mess with the enemy and make them guess what you're going to be doing. And besides the fancy stuff, she has very workable tools, a good down 3. Forward 4 is a very fast mid, which very easy hit confirm string. And she does have a natural launcher as well. And this is in both stances. It's the same move, just quarter circle forward and 3 if you enhance it. And from there, all sorts of air combos, whatever you can dream up. So she has a lot of the basic building blocks. In a lot of ways, she's less fancy than some of the other characters, especially given how crazy this game is. But if you're just looking for very solid neutral control, big buttons, good screen control, especially in dark stance, because in dark stance, I consider her fireball like dominant for the most part. Considering it's such a huge area, it's a low, it's a knockdown, so you get to set it up again. Like the enemy just has to respect you, and then you can just work your way in whenever you want. I think this is a good addition to the cast. Now, Geras. Once again, this is not his default outfit like Ashrah. I just think he looks really sick in this outfit, like a big muscle-bound genie. Geras, the best thing I can say is someone was out to earn their paycheck on this character. This character is ridiculous. So let's just run through it, I guess, right? So some of the basic stuff, like does he still have that time stop? Sure. Has the basic version, and you can choose which side you land on. The enhanced version, as you remember it, you get your hits in, they explode up, and you can dunk them down to the ground, right? And that's one thing right there. So he has all sorts of aerial grapples now. Depending on what air combos you want to do, he can choose which side to dunk you down on. He actually has a variety of different throws in the air as well. Like, whatever you want to work with here, he has multiple air grabs, right? So, Geras being the big muscle brown boy that he definitely is showing it. Also, not the least of which, he inherits one of the 2 command grabs in the game. There's really not that many grabs in the game. So, the thing about this is, gives him a lot of forward space. A lot of screen is traveled overall, which is very handy. And you choose which side. And the general range of it is very long for a grab, as you can see here. He does not need to be beside the enemy to do it. The weakness, as it were, is it is a high, so therefore you are allowed to neutral duck it. Although that's considered, of the 2 command grabs in the game, him and Reiko, I do think his is a lot better, if only for the range. And hey, once again, even if you're crouching, if you block, that means you will get grabbed, right? So if you're scared and blocking, he'll still get you. What's different about this is the corner. So by itself, the throw does 120, which is 1% more than a basic throw, right? If you do it in the corner, okay, whatever. But if you are in the corner, on either side, it doesn't matter, and you throw them out of the corner, the animation changes, and you do a lot more damage. You do almost 20%. So basically, if you get him in the corner, that's a potentially like game-ending scenario. If you get grabbed, you're taking a lot of damage. So watch out for that. Which means you best stop blocking, start hitting buttons, right? Best start spamming. And of course, if you know they're spamming, then it's time to blow them up for it. Now that's the understandable stuff, right? Let's get silly. So back forward 3. What is this? So there's a bit of a portal here, and I'm made of the sands of time. So what happens when this is up? It does only last a certain amount of time. So while this is up, if you get hit at all, you don't take any damage. You just return to the start point. Like, you don't even take the effective, like, super armor damage. You're free. Doesn't matter if it does 1 hit point of damage or 1,000,000 hit points of damage. You just don't take damage. You are consequence free while this is up, which is amazing. And of course, hey, you still do as much damage as you ever did. Like, that part doesn't go away. The only difference is at the end of the clock, you go back. So if you do this, basically, you can do whatever stupid stuff you want. Take risks. Do whatever. It's basically free to do for the most part. The worst you'll get is just reset back to your starting point. So the only consequence is it does take a second to set up, I guess, but still, given the overall benefits, I think that's pretty all right. And if you're willing to burn some bar, you get the enhanced version, and you get a clone, and it just copies whatever the last thing you did. So if he did an uppercut, he'll do a couple uppercuts before he dissipates. He's basically just a clone that will follow through. Say we're in the corner and I got the meter to burn, right? So I can hit you with something, cancel into it, set him to do down 1. And then he'll just keep spamming down 1. And if you're paying along here earlier in class, if they're just going to block everything I set up by the dummy, right? I control what the dummy's going to do. The inputs you enter when the clock is on is the inputs it'll do. So say you condition him. Now instead of just jabbing all the time, I'll just jab once. So only 1 jab. And oh, I got to block. Whoops, we're dead. Game over. So yeah, it's 2 bars. It's a lot, right? But that's some innovative fighting game nonsense, really. That you got your clone pre-programmed to enter whatever inputs you want to input when they have the time stop on. It'll do everything short of a throw, because it can't throw for you, because that would be messed up, right? But yeah, if you just want to do 1 jab, if you want to input a whole string, whatever you want, as long as that clock's in, whatever inputs you do, it'll mimic it. Like, do you want them to only go for lows? Sure. They'll walk forward, go for lows. Like, whatever you input, that's what it'll be. So that's a lot of nonsense already, right? The train ain't out of the station just yet. So let's dial it down back to normal for a second. So his sand burst is still back. Enhanced version has armor, sure. He has sand pillars again. They're aimable again. So close, medium, far, however you aim it. An interesting part of the move is if you hit him at the far end, it'll knock him backwards. But if you hit him with the back end, it'll launch you forward. If you use the right strings with the right combos, you'll get the proper spacing, and then you can pull off all sorts of nonsense, right? So that's really good. And also the enhanced version, you might recall, clocks, right? So it'll wait a hot second, then explode. Nothing new for Geras, but the clock itself actually matters now. So if you get 3 clocks in, you unlock what is effectively a super move. So how about the old time stop attack, right? But for free and anywhere on the screen. Seems like a pretty sweet deal, doesn't it, right? Because it is. It's absolutely a sweet deal. So if you do any move, I mean any move, that makes the clock appear, you get 3 of those clocks in, you unlock your super move. Down back 3 by itself just summons a clock, so we don't got to stress it out too hard. And one of our strings here, we can summon the clock and literally bash your head into it. And now that's 3 clocks, and guess what? You're dead. Simple as that. So it's something to really watch out for. It's not quite instant. It is blockable, so it's not like you're guaranteed dead. But once you build up 3 clocks in any way, shape, or form, and by the way, the base clock version, if you enhance it, it gives you 3 clocks right away. He has a super move. That's really strong. Also, that's not the only super move he has. If you want to EX the super move, then you get something else entirely. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get it beat up a little bit here. And now, we go back to where we were a few seconds ago, and we have the same health value we had a few seconds ago. So it's a really strong get out of jail card, basically, where you can just say, nah, I want things how they used to be with my old health back. So Geras is very interesting to say the least. So I took you all the way to that insanity. Let's just bring it down with something super mundane. His sweep. I don't know. He just has one of the best sweeps in the game. Like, the range is actually ridiculous, and the animation is actually really cool. So on top of all this other nonsense I told you, he has decent strings. His sweep is effectively a super long-range poke as well, so his ability just to contest on the screen is really good. If you want fighting game silliness, if you like to stretch the limit of what fighting games can do, Geras is that character. Now, Li Mei is very unique and interesting in this game because she's aiming for a game plan not a lot of other characters are aiming for. Obviously, you want to punch and kick your opponent in the head till they die, sure, right? But the way she goes about it is very different. Not the least of which is this, the lantern. This is one of the most unique moves in the game. In and of itself, it doesn't do much, really. But what it is a big no-fly zone. If you are anywhere near it as is above your head, or if you jump into it, it's gonna blow you up something fierce. So while this is up, you can't necessarily play the way you would normally like to play, which is very, very interesting. And she can do a lot of ways to force you into it. Like, say, if it's close to you, she has a low string, which launches, right? So, okay, it's above your head, guess low. Whoops, you guessed wrong, get hit, right? Or say 4-3, overhead. Oops, the overhead launches a little bit, just enough for you to touch that lantern, just a little peak, right? And then from there, take extra damage. And of course, if it's just already in the air, whoops, dum-dum jumped into it, and now look at this. He took that much damage. That's just a really cool aspect of the character. And it's not the only thing about the character, but I like how all you gotta do is just go one setup and say, no, this part of the fighting game we normally do with jumping and all that, you really can't do that right now. Now, besides that, Li Mei is fairly stock. She's got a fireball, good. Has an air fireball. Enhanced fireball, both air and ground, basically has a knock forward effect, which knocks the opponent into you, and then you can do whatever combos. Really helped with the bazooka knee, which is just a really good move. Very visually satisfying. Just kick, punches, explosions, really cool. The EX version is armored and has a lot of range as well, so you can catch people just on reaction with it. That's really cool. And that fireball, if you're fast enough, keyword fast enough, because right there, that's not fast enough, right? If you do it as low to the ground as possible, you can hit people standing, which means, well, you hit people standing, which is always good, and it means it's exponentially more difficult to jump over because it's just a little bit higher in the air. Now, besides that, her general strings and all offense, all keyed to being, for the most part, just directly beside the enemy. She does not have too much range. So other than setting up the lantern and maybe tossing the odd fireball, you just want to get in there. So do what you got to do. Forward 4, very good. Quick low, has overhead follow-up, safe on block. And if you go for forward 4-3, that's a launcher. And it's a launcher that you can do just about any old thing you want from. So that's really, really good, really handy. Although it's not terribly safe on block. But here's where you get really fun. So one of her moves, this is air only, by the way. Cortical back and 4. It's a double hitting overhead. However, you can do it criminally low to the ground. That doesn't look like that was an air special, does it, right? But that was indeed an airborne move, just a split second off the ground. And the move itself is actually lightning fast. It is unreactable, straight up, not reactable. So say you got an unreactable double hitting overhead that can hit from like almost halfway across the screen, right? People are going to want to start stand blocking that stuff, right? Out of fear. And then all of a sudden, quick low in the launcher becomes a lot more feasible. And then you can get your combo on to your heart's content, which is what we all want, right? And FYI, yes, it's not safe on block, but if you're willing to spend a little meter, then it's very safe on block. -6, no one's punishing that. Now, another interesting part of the character. I mentioned earlier in the video about moves that are -7 on block, which is safe, for the most part. Down ones are 7 frames, but you can't do a down one reversal timing, so therefore you can't punish a move that's -7. It has to be 6 frames. The only way you could punish a move that's -7, which is generally considered safe, is if you had a 7-frame special move as a reversal, which, funnily enough, Li Mei does. So, cortical back kick is good for combo fodder for the most part, but the enhanced version is 7-frame startup, meaning it can punish moves that are normally not punishable. So like Rain here, doing down 4. -7 on block, nominally safe. Sure, it's not his turn anymore, he has to block, but nominally safe. Against Li Mei though, punish. She can take guaranteed damage off of this. So many strings in this game are -7 on block, and she is one of the precious few characters that can reliably block and punish otherwise unpunishable moves. So that is very, very, very strong. And before we close out, I want to bring up lanterns again, because it's super key, right? Besides lanterns, she's pretty straightforward. She's pretty, kick punch in your face, right? Oh, by the way, 4-3, you can hold it to fake out. So it doesn't have to be an overhead. So you can either do it, you can hold it and not do it, and then say go for a throw, or you can special cancel out of it if you hold the button, because it's considered airborne. This gives you basically perfect timing for instant air fireballs. It's about as high as it'll go and still hit. If you can perfectly manually time it yourself, it is better, but it's hard. It's not reliable. It's not like Sindel, right? So that's really fun and interesting. Or you can go for that overhead we mentioned, which if you do it right timing, it's actually faster than the base overhead out of forward 3. But hey, lanterns, right? What do we do with weather balloons if you're here in North America? What we do is we shoot those suckers out of the sky. And turns out, when you do that, it forces it to the ground and explodes the enemy, even if they're safely on the ground. No, not anymore. So yeah, that's an interesting part of the thing, is if they don't want to engage, you can force it to engage, basically. Shoot it down, it'll go down the ground level, and then if they're there, they can block it, sure. But if they don't, they get launched. So yeah, lantern's super key. A lot of her strings are made with lantern in mind, like back 2-1. Doesn't do a lot of damage by itself, but it gives an extra long knockdown, which is perfect to set up a lantern without any interference. Now, I've gone this whole video without trying to highlight cameos for specific characters, because that's a whole other just crazy pool of things to pull from, right? But I do highly suggest Li Mei is really paired with someone who can freeze. Why? Because freeze lets you set up. What does it let you set up? Well, it lets you set up one of those lanterns, which is so key, right? And specifically, it lets you set up a lantern and still get a full combo. Basically, it just lets her combo structure get just a good deal more involved and fun. And, you know, the damage is good too, right? Over 40% for 1 bar is not bad. So yeah, I highly suggest someone, Sub-Zero, Frost, someone who can freeze and just let you set up your lanterns is just heavily recommended, because the lantern just wildly ups your combo damage and just is a big part of the character. But yeah, so Li Mei, lanterns, the character. Now Kenshi. I've been doing this fighting game thing long enough to know the two words that scare people the most in fighting games are stance character and puppet character. And Kenshi is a puppet character and a stance character. He has a puppet, that's his pal Sento. Look at this guy right here. And he can attack you and all that kind of stuff. And also, look at a stand 2. While our ghost is out, stand 2 is a completely different move. So while he has the puppet out, he also has an all-new stance with all new moves, which I'm sure is going to scare 80% of you out of the gate. So let's dial it down first, and let's start with the basics. So basics, Kenshi still does Kenshi stuff. Shoulder charge, summon ghost for launches, force push, which is holdable by the way. The more you hold it, the bigger it gets. If you enhance it, it charges a lot faster, right? So a lot of the usual denial screen, a lot of control of the screen stuff is all there. Now, what returns from what is nominally a variation-only move in older games, Demon Drop. So this is aimable. You can choose close, medium, or far. And this is just a straight-up projectile overhead, basically. You have to stand block this. Certainly no neutral ducking this guy, because if you neutral duck, you get bopped. And naturally enough, the enhanced version juggles. So if you want to play around from full screen, he can still deal appreciable damage to you no matter how far away you are. But say you're the kind of madman, like, I don't want to deal with all the zoning and stuff, right? You want to charge in honorable combat and work your way in. Well, luckily enough, this move actually destroys projectiles. So if you just want to be a madman and rush your way in, projectiles will not stop you. So for whatever reason, you're getting outzoned despite all your tools, you can just say, nah, man, I'm coming in, you got to deal with it. And also, if you have second thoughts, you can totally just cancel the run by hitting the stance button and go for whatever you want to go for from there. Now, besides the fanciness of the telekinesis, he also has pretty appreciable normals here because, hey, he does have a sword, right? So the range is really good on a lot of his various sword normals. So keep them in mind that just besides the usual projectile zoning, he can hold his own neutral with his fairly large buttons. But now, let's take off the band-aid, right? The stance. So when you have the stance up, all your moves change. Your basic normals, and you might notice here, whenever I'm attacking, so is the ghost. So the ghost has 4 basic attacks, and it's the same 4 basic attacks you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And now the ghost is going to go away. What happened there? So the ghost uses your cameo meter of all things. So now say your cameo meter is actually like most of the way depleted. That doesn't matter. It has its own separate cooldown, but it uses the cameo meter as its kind of go through, right? So as long as it's on the screen, it'll drain, drain, drain. Can't stay up forever. And when that's complete and done and over with, it will go away. So you got to make the most of it while it's there. One thing here is you can actually control it without moving. Just move. You can block. It'll just move around by itself as long as you're holding the appropriate directions. You can recall it to you with quarter circle back 2. If you want to do the EX version, it will reset its meter. So as long as you're willing to keep spending bar, you will keep resetting the meter of your ghost, and it will stay on the screen indefinitely. Also has some tandem moves where you need the ghost close and yourself, quarter circle back 4, and you guys will work together and toss, just slice up the enemy. And also, it becomes a fairly decent projectile if you want to use the enhanced version, and you'll just teleport right to the enemy and slice them up something fierce. Now, how do we beat the ghost? So just tapping it is enough to make it go away for a bit. Not too long, but it'll just sit there and drain, and while that's happening, Kenshi can't do anything other than his own basic moves. You can't do any of the specials, anything like that, right? So you gotta wait out the ghost just a little bit. Also, if the ghost is cramping your style because it kind of mimics all your actions, if you hold the cameo button, it'll just kind of stay in place and you can freely move around, hit buttons. It won't mimic anything. So if for whatever reason, if you're worried about it ruining a setup or something like that, you can make it stay in place. Just simply hold the cameo button and the meter will still drain. It is not free, but at least the ghost won't be ruining your grand plans if you have any. And to note, while he's in sword stance, he has a lot of sword normals. His range actually gets really absurd. Like, look at his down 3 here. Like, that's nuts. So he gets a decent amount of strings, meterless launchers. He gets back 2, which is a wacky overhead. This does not look like an overhead, but it counts as an overhead. So yeah, the stance is definitely about the ghost, but he's no slouch with his new normals to work with and new strings to work with. So is Kenshi potentially the most complex character in the game? Yeah, probably. Probably, honestly. You're going to have to put in some work if you want to get the most out of this boy, but The amount of options he has available to him simply is unmatched compared to the rest of the cast. Baraka. So Baraka historically has never fared too well in most Mortal Kombat games, both in terms of story and in terms of just being a character worth playing. This time around, I think he might have what it takes to succeed. Why? Well, one, he's just got a bundle of good normals. Like, look at a sweep. A sweep that can hit from this far away is a sweep worth using. That's good. He has just good stuff here, like a forward 4, quick mid. Want to follow through, it has a string as well. If you have back 1, quick low with some decent range, that's good. Stand 2 has a lot of range for how fast it is, that's good. Forward 2, just a giant F-off poke, that's good. Back 3, this is one of the shining stars here. Very fast mid into low. Also has meterless launcher, which is safe on block, by the way. And then you can just go into, you know, whatever combo stuff you want to go into, right? And as you can tell, his combo structure, like all the animations are vicious as hell. Even the basic stuff, like he's always had a basic projectile, right? It's actually not bad. Fairly fast, 8 damage, 8% rather. Good for what it is. The enhanced version, 10%, and does a damage over time effect. And while the damage over time effect is happening, you do increased chip damage to the enemy while they're blocking. So that's not bad at all. He now has an air spin as well. Good for combo structure, sure. But also just in those situations where they both happen to be in the air, before all I could do is hit a button, right? Now you can charge forward, and this eats a lot of screen real estate. So if it's air to air, you're almost certainly going to crush them. He has fun modular moves here. So quarter circle back 1 on its own causes a good knockdown. But if it happens to be against an airborne opponent, then all of a sudden you just start stabbing them. And you get to choose which side they're dumped out on. So whatever's more advantageous to you, just hold left or right, and they dump out on that side. He's also just really good at dumping meter. So say Chop Chop, which has returned and very vicious looking, right? You can enhance it, sure, but you can enhance it after it's already done. So if you're just looking for like that killing blow, you can dump the meter and just do well. Also, he's got this fun little thing. It looks a little silly, I know. He's like literally using his claws to pogo himself off the ground. But this is a safe on block overhead launcher. And, well, if you're launching the enemy, hey, quick overhead, quick juggles, right? So you can get some decent stuff off of it. I guess one of the biggest selling points of Baraka is just simply his level of viciousness. Like, stand 4, normally for everyone it's a big kick. For him, you can keep mashing it and just getting multiple blade flurries, right? So I don't think the character's ever looked more vicious than he has in this rendition of the game. For the most part, he's rushed down. He's just here to clobber you in the face. He's good. Stuff like his new blade special in the air gives random jump kicks just a lot more teeth, as he's able to convert off a random hit in a way he couldn't really before. That's really handy. I think he's just got a bag of really good normals that are just handy across the board. I just think he's a solid all-round character now. Moving on to Havik, another character that's been a long time since they've been playable in the game. Havik is a gross, weird boy. I think that says it all right there. So what happened there? He headbutted you, his head exploded, and then it regrew. And he can rip off his own head and beat you with it, all that kind of stuff. He's just a gross, silly boy. Not the least of which, have you ever heard of disjointed normals in a fighting game? Well, how about this disjoint? How about this disjoint? Because his limbs are literally coming off the joints to hit you. So he's that kind of guy. Now, how does he play? He's a weird hybrid of a couple different things. So does he have a fireball? Sure. It's a little slow, right? Not winning any zoning wars. But the enhanced version comes in from the other side of the screen. It won't necessarily home in on people that are jumping, but it'll try to hit the enemy as long as they're level with the screen. And yeah, so while this is out, you can freely move around, right? So they have to worry about the incoming projectile while you are also bulldogging on them. He even has more than one projectile. So the other one, he rips his head open basically, and something escapes from his body, and it's a big old nasty explosion. And once again here, after it comes loose, like the setup does take a hot minute, but after it comes loose, you are free to move around. And since it meterlessly bounces the opponent, if you know you got that hit, you can get follow-ups, including ripping off your own jaw and puking blood on the guy, right? Because that's how we do. Enhanced version, by the way, sends out multiple projectiles. So if for whatever reason, the opponent's not zoning you out, it's kind of difficult to navigate these bad boys due to the arcs they travel. Now, with that said, 2 different kinds of projectiles. Is he a zoner? No, not really. In fact, he's this game's resident juggernaut. So we got this. And yeah, he's ripping off his own arm, beating you over the head with it, which is whatever. It's as you do, whatever floats your boat. So what's interesting about the move twofold. One, it is a launcher. So launching the opponent, always handy, right? Not a bad chunk of meterless damage. But it's so slow. Like, it's cool we can rip off our own arm and club the dude, right? But how are we ever going to realistically pull that off in a match? Well, I'll tell you how. This move, something special about it. It's armored. Just straight up. And the move is armored. Now, if you get the armor off, it doesn't launch. But it does do enhanced damage. It does 14%, right? So rest assured, whatever that move is, they're taking more damage than you're taking. It is only 1 hit of armor. So say we have someone like Reiko, right? Who can just throw an absolute absurd amount of projectiles. We can stop exactly 1, but that is it. Fair enough, right? It's not even metered. Being able to absorb even a single hit of armor for free is very, very rare and powerful. So that's one of the things here is the enhanced version has multiple hits of armor. It can tank a lot. Realistically, it is effectively impossible to break. I believe it's 4 hits. I could be wrong, but if you're willing to burn that bar, you're tanking through whatever is coming your way. End of story. And with this, he is effectively the game's juggernaut, as he can armor through and bully you. And if he's willing to spend the meter, the armor gets better. And also, if it hits cleanly, the EX version, that's a crumple. And that means you can launch after the fact. So one of the things about this character, right there, you might notice I went for that projectile, right? So the projectile does what it does, but if you do it in a combo, then it actually becomes a launcher meterlessly. So it has a lot of additional value just doing it up close, so you can get all sorts of combos going. Other special moves, twisting torso. Think of this like Goro's punch walk, basically. It is basically just your big, I'm going to deal a lot of damage to you in one move kind of deal. Very good for combo enders. Real quick, let's switch gears. His normals, he actually has some pretty appreciable normals. Like, look here. See how far away I am? I bet you wouldn't think down 4 would hit from that far. And his down 4 is actually a bit faster than most people's. Most people's are 10 framers. His is 9 frames and has appreciably more range than most of the cast. That's really good. And his sweep, by the way, also kind of same deal here. The range is absolutely fantastic. Nothing much more to say than that. So when it comes to just basic poking and bullying, he's actually above average. He's very good at it. He can connect from ranges most characters cannot. Also, back 2. So it's not the fastest move in the world, 18 frames, but it is appreciably a long-range mid. So if you're just looking to fly your way in, you can absolutely do it. Also, the string, easy hit confirms. Oh, I got my hit. Cool. Launch, get my combo. Or, okay, say you block. I got a low. Great. All right, better block low because, hey, I got that low. And that low is safe on the block, by the way. So now that you're blocking, oh, I got a grab. Turns out. So yeah, he has a grab attached to the string. So it's not a proper command grab, as you would, right? But it deals a decent amount of damage, and he can enforce basically the mix-up. So you block this string, now you have to guess low, which is completely safe. It's basically almost no consequence for him to do it. And if you do try to block, he can go for the throw. So that's a really fun way to deal with it. Now there is a gap in between, yes. So technically you could armor through it, but you could also just let it rock, and that's also perfectly safe. So if they try to armor through it, you block, you get a full punish, right? So it's not like ground breaking or anything, but the fact that he has just an appreciable mix off a mid string, like basically all the options are safe, and you're forced into a bit of a 50-50, I think that's actually pretty good. To complement that long range mid, he also has a very long range low and does string out just to multiple lows. So say if you have certain cameos with an overhead, you can go for the first hit and go for the cameo overhead to freak people out. He has a bunch of strings that are plus on block, like this guy here, where his head exploded. The overhead ender, that is +3. This guy here, forward 1-2-2. Once again, another overhead ender. So if you have cameos with high-low mix, just keep that in mind, right? Another overhead ender, that is +3. 2-1, +6. So shades of Reiko, maybe not as plus as Reiko's back fist, but +6 on block is nothing to sneeze at. So lots of silly stuff, and I saved the best for last, of course. So the hit grab we saw earlier where he sort of pukes blood all over you. Nasty, right? If you enhance it, it takes 2 bars. That's a lot. So what are we spending 2 bars on? Wait a second. What is this? Nasty piece of business right there, right? So as long as that's attached to you, and it doesn't last forever, but as long as it's attached to you, what he gets is an unblockable attack. And it doesn't matter. Once again, unblockable. You can be holding block all you want. Won't save you. You could be in the air. You can be in the middle of teleporting. None of this matters. It's actually unblockable. You can't deal with it. The only way to stop it is to hit Havik before he chooses to do it. And if he did it, then it's already too late. And also, whoops, it's a crumple state. So let's do a simple combo, right? I'll juggle. Let's set up the link. The link is now established. 2 bars, sure, but now the thing's on. Ah, gotcha. Now, we're going to beat you up something silly. So that was all guaranteed because of that. Now, the one thing you might have noticed in that combo is that combo didn't do as much damage as it could have. It is scaled because in a lot of ways it's effectively guaranteed. But still, for 2 bars, man, truly unblockable move. Like here, we'll set the opponent here. Look, they're going to block literally everything, right? Holding block. No dice. Try to jump out. Let's see how well it's going to work for you. Jumping out. Nope. No dice. Gotcha, right? So your only way out is to hit Havik. And if he activates it before you can hit him, you're kind of screwed. So I think that's a really powerful mechanic to say the least. You spend a good chunk of change a meter, sure. But you're investing in yourself in the future. Let's put it that way. And plus, look how gross that is. Like, it's his tongue or something. That's messed up. So Havik, suffice to say the least, is an interesting character in Mortal Kombat 1. Johnny Cage. So in a lot of ways, he's everything you think he would be. But in some ways, he's actually changed up quite a bit. So one, the green glow. While he certainly has moves like the shadow kick, he can do the uppercut, no more green glow. And specifically, that means no more projectiles. So he's basically pure rushdown, which, hey, that's fine. He's got tools for it. He has a command dash for one. And he can double dash if you want to spend meter enhancing it. It's completely immune to projectiles. His wave dash game, very good. So if you just want to work your way in the old-fashioned way, he can do it faster than most characters. He can basically wave dash as fast as like some characters could run in Mortal Kombat X. But yeah, other than what potentially your cameo brings to the table, you got no ranged options. You work your way in, and then, well, he's got a lot of good stuff. Not the least which, don't worry, not punch, still very much there, right? He's got a lot of those classics. If you're looking to bully your opponent when you're already in, stand 1-1, 1-1-4, and stand 4-4. All really good, strong sources of plus frames. 4-4 specifically. It's plus 15 on block, which is ridiculous. But yeah, basically you get in there and you do your thing. So as far as doing your thing entails, stuff like, say, forward 1, 2, 4. That is meterless launcher. So we get in, and you can get some combo ability from it. If you're looking to uppercut people, rising uppercut is very easily comboable, as it lets you attack while you're at the top of your jump. So you can smoke the enemy, stand 2, jump forward, juggle. Not necessarily the most optimal example here, but just giving you an idea of what's possible, right? So good juggle potential there on the basics mid-screen. Other than throwing fireballs, Johnny can do a lot of the Johnny things, right? But I'm kind of burying the lead here. So you see those big stars in the corners. That's kind of everything Johnny is in this version of this game. The hype meter. So when you do special moves, you slowly build it up, right? Not too fast, but it's there. But the thing is, many special moves, if you hold the stance change button, do some taunting here. You have a little bit of fun. And when you taunt, it builds up that meter a good bit. And when it's full and ready to go, it's showtime. So what happens now that the stage light is on you, right? What's going on here? What nutness is this? Well, I think that's a good idea, right? It lets you cancel any special move into any other special move up to 3 times. So suffice to say, your damage output drastically goes up. On top of the various specials here, where you can do it, you can also just manually build up the hype gauge yourself. And it's the same command as activating once it's full. And here's one of the things. So another important thing about hype mode is when you do a special move in hype mode, it is always the enhanced version. So say I do the uppercut, I can still do my air juggles after the uppercut, all that kind of stuff. So no matter what, like a ball buster there, only the enhanced version leaves you standing. Normally it would fall down, right? So whenever you're doing your specials, you're always getting the better version of the special completely for free on top of the combo freedom that's given you. So let's give you an example. So there we go. And the hype gauge isn't even done yet, right? That's 40% completely meterlessly. And that's just an example. Depending on which cameos you have and how much you're willing to go in your positioning, you can get pretty absurd. As long as that gauge is going, you're allowed to triple cancel any special. And once again, it's the EX version, so they always do more damage as well. And the amount of freedom you have in just pressuring the opponent is wild. And that's the main name of the game for Johnny here. You build up your meter, and when you're in your hype mode, you're basically a boss version of the character. You're breaking all the rules of the game. You can kind of do whatever you want to do. And hey, speaking of the rules, stuff like the fatal blow. So Johnny, like everyone, has a fatal blow, sure. He can hold it. And when he's holding it, it basically becomes a counter. So here I am, I'm just holding my thing, and if they try to hit me, well, lights out, you're done. And not only that, right? Okay, I know this stupid thing you're holding it, I'm not going to do it, I'm just going to wait you out. The thing about waiting him out is, if you fully charge it, it's unblockable. Oh, and all said and done too, while you're holding it, you can dash cancel out of it. So if they're waiting, or trying to avoid you, you can go, nah, dash in, throw them, whatever, right? So it's very different than the usual kind of fatal blow, to say the least. So in a lot of ways, Johnny, he's actually pretty straightforward without the hype meter. You rush in, do strings, hit buttons, that kind of stuff, right? Get your combos in, right? And his pressure is good. Once again, his mobility is good. His ability to get in and stick on you is good, right? Good rush down character. But it's the hype meter that makes him truly special and really just something else in this game. So if that sounds appealing to you, I think you should try out Johnny. And just real quick, as a fun little bonus, here's the stupid things you can do with an appropriate cameo. So yeah, just suffice to say, the opponent's balls can be tenderized pretty well. And that is the Choose Your Main for Mortal Kombat 1. This isn't intended to be a full guide for every single character, naturally, this video's already long enough, but hopefully I gave you a good idea of what every character is capable of, some of the cooler aspects of the character, some of the things they can do. I think the roster in Mortal Kombat 1 is very strong. I think some of these characters are doing some of the best things they've done in many years, many renditions of the games, and I just think the game's pretty cool all in all. So that said, hope you enjoyed the video. If you stuck around this long, leave a like, that would help out quite a bit. And otherwise, it's time for you to go out and enjoy some Mortal Kombat 1. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.